Hey guys, what's up? It's been a minute. So in this video I'm going to be talking about the negative effects of spirituality that I have personally went through. I am going to be smoking a cigarette throughout this video, but I don't want you to judge me for it because a lot of our spiritual teachers back in the 80s or something used to smoke tobacco pipes, so don't come for me about smoking a cigarette. I know it's not very spiritual of me, but it's my life and that's just how I'm living it right now. But I wanted to talk about some of the negative aspects of spirituality that I have personally experienced. So the main effect that I have experienced from spirituality is quieting the mind to a certain degree that could potentially be unhealthy. Now, if you want to watch my ego death video, I just uploaded it and you guys can watch that. It helps explain how I got to this stage of meditation. So, pretty much watch that video and it quickly explains, well, it doesn't quickly explain, but I'm going to explain. I've had one natural ego death in my life without any substances. I haven't had another ego death up until that point. I've only had one ego death in my whole life and it's changed me for the better, but I will talk about the negative aspects of spirituality that I've experienced. So, pretty much, what happens when you quiet the mind? You become more observant, you become less judgmental, and, what else? I don't know, you seem to accept people more than what it is normally, seen as accepting. So pretty much what I mean by that is you get into a point of empathy to where you can see the person's experience for what they're experiencing it and expressing it as, whereas you don't judge them. You accept them for who they are. You can see their points of view. So let's just say you have a nasty coworker. They come up to you, they tell you you're not doing your job right, but then they try to explain a better way to do your job. But you see the situation and the interaction for what it is, and you do not judge them for it. And you have more empathy towards the person because you never know what someone else's life is like. And those depths and levels of acceptance of others is very hard to achieve in your day-to-day life. I would definitely say my ego death is the main reason how I was able to achieve those types of empathy and understanding towards others. But you know, life happens. And so anyway, as I was saying, pretty much I would say meditation is a good way to get there. Having a natural ego death is a good way to get there. What else? Maybe trying substances can help you achieve that, but I would be careful with that because you don't want to get into a point to where your experiences overwhelm the natural state of being less judgmental. And anytime you try any weed or anything like that, you're gonna want to let the experience be itself, and you're not gonna want to attach yourself to those experiences. But anyway, as I was saying, so pretty much I went throughout my life being less judgmental, more observant, and more empathetic. And I saw myself in them, and I saw them within themselves. and I was able to have the empathy, if I wanted to feel their situations out and understand them a little better. So pretty much, also I want to make a video about being too empathetic. That's just a reminder for myself later. I'll make a video about that. But pretty much, what else was I gonna say? Yeah, that's pretty much how I live my life. I was less judgmental, I was more empathetic, I was more observant, and I had more of the I see myself within you experience. And there was actually a few times in my life I've checked, I would say 3 people on checking their own egos, where I essentially lifted their veil. I didn't give them an ego death, but I lifted their veil in a way to where they could see their true selves. I did it once with a narcissist, which is very complicated and difficult to do. I did it once with one of my old bosses, and I did it once with another coworker. So pretty much doing that kind of stuff is very helpful. If you can obtain that, it's good to help others, but you have to be cautious, because sometimes those experiences, others don't want to see their own egos, others don't want to see their own issues that they have, so you're going to want to be cautious doing that. It's very rude to show someone themselves in a way that they might not be prepared for. So I've never done, well, not gonna say never, but I intentionally would try to not do that for that reason. So if I had ever shown anyone their egos, then it was just something that naturally occurred. It was never something that I had intentions to sought out and do. So please be cautious with that. Another thing is, pretty much, I went throughout my life with no voice in my head, and what I mean by that is my narrative wasn't talked about. I didn't have my not self-conscious, I'm trying to think of the word, but the inner voice in my head was very, 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 very quiet, to the point to where I almost never heard it. And I know that sounds like such a huge brag, but I don't mean it to come off in that way. It's more of a humble brag, because I had obtained that myself. So if you have the ability to do that, then welcome. I also used to do that. I don't do it as much anymore because I have more distractions in my life, things I need to keep up with, and I'm trying to get back to that point. But it's a very nice and peaceful way to live. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it. So I went through, I want to say my biggest achievement would be realizing I was in that state while staying in that state. I was walking through the hallway at work, and I just realized, man, I haven't heard myself talk in a long time. And I just went on with my day. And it eventually fizzled out. My thoughts eventually came back. But I will say there are negative aspects to that, besides the one I had already explained. Another aspect of that is you could lose your sense of self in a way that you are just a vessel. And what I mean by that is you could lose the capability to conversate with people, and that is where I found myself. I was getting to the point to where I was just going through life being an observer, and I didn't have any personality. I lost, geez, man, I would say 60 to 80% of my personality, and I was just a vessel at that point. So you're going to want to be cautious doing that too much, to the extent of losing your personality. You know, I had lost my humor, I had lost my judgment, I had lost my not my judgment of character, but I had lost my judgmental thinking. And that's very crucial to who we are as humans, because we have to interact with the world in a way that can be reciprocated. If you get to a point to where you're just observing, then you could lose a lot of your sense of self, and that becomes weary, because you can essentially just go through life and not have any real good healthy interactions with people. So if you're hanging around a group of people and you're, let's just say, in that state of mind, you could be losing social interactions. That's what I'm trying to get at. So pretty much, if someone cracks a joke within the group, you could eventually get to the point to where, instead of laughing at the joke because it was genuinely funny, you get to a point to where you just nod and you're like, yeah, I see where you're coming from. And you do that so much to the point to where you lose who you are. And I don't mean that in a scary way. I mean that as in, like, the slate is wiped clean. You pretty much have no reference of who am I, what do I like to do, what do I find humorous, what do I find happy, what do I find sad. Those type of situations can lead you to oneness. However, it gets to a point to where you're very I don't want to say a bad word, I'm trying to think of the right word. You become very sponge-like, I would say. Well, not even sponge-like. You become like a filter. Your life becomes a filter, and you just ebb and flow throughout life. And if you want to try it, then that's totally cool. But if you don't want to find yourself in a situation to where you're losing yourself, do personality checks, you know what I mean? So definitely think of yourself more often. And I know that doesn't necessarily lead to the state of meditation, and it doesn't lead to oneness, but it definitely helps grounding someone in a place to where they are not losing their sense of self. There's an ant. Here I am being mean to a bug while talking to you guys about being peaceful. So pretty much that is a very cautious tale that you guys could heed while on your journeys. So pretty much so what else? That's pretty much my experience. That's what I've experienced as far as going too deep into spirituality. It's always good to come back to the self and realign yourself with who you are as a person, and maybe build yourself into a better person. But that's pretty much all I got for this video. Now, where am I at with my journey right now? I have re-established myself, and I've realized that I do like spirituality, but I need to find a healthy balance to where I'm not losing my social ability, because becoming socially inept is not worth the spiritual growth. And I'm just being honest. And I would say that I lived in that state for about 2 to 3 years, and then eventually I grew out of it, because it holds you back from things in life. So I wasn't able to be successful in a job because of it. I was losing meaningful relationships that had no depth with family and friends. It was more surface level, like, hey, how you doing? I'm glad your day's going good. Moving on. And I don't mean that in a arrogant, secluded way. I mean that in a, like, I was socially inept to the point to where I would not know how to respond to conversations. And the third and most, like, detrimental point that I'm making with this video is it got to a point to where my conversation levels were very, very minute. It got to a point to where someone would walk up to me, like at work, and they'd be like, hey, I need help with this, this, and this, and this, and I would just look at them, and I would be so stuck in sitting and listening, being attentive, being empathetic, less judgmental, that my ability to recall answers and responses, just not even difficult like mathematical questions or answers, but it would be to the point to where I wasn't able to help someone who was right in front of me. And what I mean by that is like, we would have a quick conversation, we'd be at work, we gotta be busy, so they would talk to me, I would be listening attentively to them, and then I would try to process what they needed from me, and then as soon as they walked away, I would walk away too, and I'd be thinking about like what they need, and I'd be like, oh crap, I could have mentioned this, or I could have mentioned that. And it's like, stuff like that is so spiritual but so socially inept to the point to where it hinders people, and that's a huge caution as well. So as you're going on your journey, just keep in mind that it's important to stay in touch with other people and humans. It's important to be kind, be helpful, but don't be so filtered to the point to where it harms, well, it doesn't harm anyone, but to the point to where it makes you socially inept is what I'm trying to say. So that's why I found myself as well, and that kind of position isn't good for me socially. And I am an introvert, which I appreciate about myself, but I don't think my introversion is to a point to where it hinders me. That's whenever I'm in contact with myself, but whenever I go off into meditation and I lose my sense of self, it can be fun, but it can be not detrimental, but it can be, there's a specific word I'm looking for, but I can't find it, but it can be a hindrance to people who really want to go out way far. But that's all I got for this video. I'm sure I could talk about this for another 20 minutes, but I don't want to run this video too long. If you want to start a discussion in the comments, then that would be totally cool. I don't know. That's pretty much all I got for this video. Yeah, hope to see you in the next one.